Alright. PvE tier list. We'll go ahead and preface this by saying this is going to be ranking the units based on where they're at. So like if this is Chimera, how good is this unit when it's actually in its environment that it should be in? Like, I'm not gonna say that air is good in water content. Like, let's have some perspective to it. We're looking at their kit and their viability in PvE environments that exist in the game currently. So let's get this started off. Air. She's one of the oldest units in the game, and I'd still say that she's S tier. She still does amazing damage. She gets extra turns. She has she cannot be resisted on her buff removal. It is removal, not stealing. That's actually really important to note in some content in the game. She can she can remove buffs. An amazing single target damage dealer. So she's still S tier. Akari. Man, I gotta be careful because I'm going to put a lot of units in S tier. I'm going to have to put Akari in A tier, even though she is incredibly viable in the contents that she is in. With the buff block, the defense break, she also can give marked because she has access to Rampaging Caracal. She can extend debuffs. She's really fun to use in conjunction with like Itamamo. But she's not really much in terms of damage. But she is high A tier easily for PvE content. Alice. She is B tier. Not very great damage. She is good in Maxwell Raid as a damage dealer and a buff blocker, but you're not really going to fit her in to a lot of like your gear dungeon teams. She doesn't really fit a lot of those scenarios very well, so she's probably mid to low B tier PvE unit. Ame, S tier. We all know why Ame's S tier. Massive single target damage due to increased damage to bosses. Automatic extra turn, can be single target or AoE on her skill 1. She has innate 10% crit rate, so she's easier to build. She has an awesome chain finisher where she gives more more CP after finishing a chain. She's just a phenomenal PvE unit. Asti, A tier unit. Use her all the time in World Boss. She's one of the best World Boss units when you need a healer because she can she can give AP to the team. She's also incredibly good in like story clearing content where you need just constant heals to stay alive. She's just a really good, solid A tier unit altogether. Beth. I've rated her high in the past, but really we're at a point where fixed damage dealing isn't really that unique anymore, and or is it that strong? Yes, she's still really good in like Guild Raid, the boss that you have to do fixed damage. But the problem is now is you don't even need her because we have fixed damage starter skills and finisher skills. So you don't really need a unit that has fixed damage innately to her kit anymore, because you can just build a bunch of CP, chain the boss 6 times, and you win. So the necessity of Beth diminishes. She's still a good damage dealer. She's still really good in Metos. She's still really good in Masterless Guardian. So for that, she's no longer S tier, but I will leave her as an A tier DPS for PvE. She's coming down. Bryn. Bryn. She is low S tier to high A tier. I'm going to put her in high up here. Give her a little bit of respect. She has the strip and the AoE on S3. That cannot be resisted. Phenomenal skill. She has the S2 where she gives a little bit of survivability to the team. That's good with the barrier. She also has access to pretty much dual attacks every single turn with her S1, which is great. But the problem is a lot of the stuff is conditional. Her S3 cannot be cooled down or anything like that. Like, you're forced to play the charisma game to access her S3. So that unfortunate accessibility to her S3 kind of brings her down, in my opinion. But she does get a lot of priority pushes from her charisma. But my biggest gripe about the way that her kit is designed for gear bosses and like basically any kind of turned content where you're trying to get stuff done in a specific amount of turns is she is so turn heavy because you have to use her S2 for her kit to continue rolling. And that chews up turns. I've come across this myself. Like, I'm like, man, she's a fantastic Chimera unit. That's great. But the problem is that you're always finding yourself popping her S2 whenever you have it up, and then next thing you know, you're like, ah, crap, I lost by like a, you know, I used too many turns by like an extra turn or two. It's because you're always wasting turns with her S2. If she could just get those benefits without having to waste a turn, easy S tier unit in my opinion. But that's what brings her down to A tier for me. It's just the inefficiency of her turn cycling. Charlotte. Easy A tier unit. She is the buffer for Earth teams. She's just fantastic. Can't be mad about her. Kit's pretty straightforward. She just absolutely helps your team in Glyces and not really need her for toddler, but amazing unit for like Earth raid or any kind of Earth. Any kind of water boss, content. Christina. Let's see. She's basically a good unit for raid, but that's about it. I'm going to put her in B tier. I just got such a bias towards Charlotte. Or Christina, my bad. I just love her. You are not a good PvE unit, because most things are immune to freeze. She does have a strip, but again, there's better strippers in the game. Giggity. Yeah, that's where we stand there. Asti. This one's always a point of contention for me. I put her as S tier because she's just so stupid strong with her damage. Both single target and AoE. She can revive. She has the 5 weakness gauge on her starter. Like, come on. She is good. Amazing story clear carry. Like, I will always vouch for Asti until somebody just comes and puts her in her place. But she's still S tier. D-Drac, I'm still a proponent of high A tier for D-Drac and PvE. Okay. I see you. Penetration buff is still really, really good. Usually you don't have to have the penetration buff for PvE, so that's where it doesn't get as much of a credit from me. The shield is really, really good, especially for like world bosses like the dragon. Like, she's really, really good. She's just not like game breaking strong for PvE, I guess, but still incredibly high A tier PvE unit. D Stella, easily S tier unit, 10% chain finisher, strongest fixed damage chain skill in the game, cannot be stunned, cannot be frozen, cannot be basically anything. She slaps like a truck. AoEs, amazing story clear unit. You just use her everywhere. She's so good. That's why she's one of the top picks that we always tell beginners to go for, because she will make your early game career a much more enjoyable experience. Vlada, I'm going to put her up here in high A tier. For me, she's like Giga S tier, but of course my Vlada is incredibly strong. That can't be said for everybody. She's definitely not the Demi that you tell beginners to go for story clear, because they're going to be like, this sucks. But she's amazing for like tower clears. Basically, if you're a late in-game player and you just want to kill things fast, like I use her every day to clear Terminus Isle with the, the mob waves and whatnot. She just nukes them and moves on. She's also really good for things like, Secreed Guardian, because she is faster than the boss and she can strip the boss so that she cannot stun you. So that is one of her main PvE draws for potentially early to mid game players, is she will let you just breeze through Secreed Guardian. You can strip, the boss can't do anything, then you can put up like Asti or Diane to put up their immunity, and you're basically big chill, and you just break the boss, DPS, and game over. Diane, easy A tier unit, because she has one of the best, she does have the best immunity and cleanse on her S3. She can help priority push the team. She can extend the duration of the immunity, so you essentially will have permanent immunity as long as nothing strips you. Incredible A tier unit, and she is like super mega cheese for toddler, because you can just make her faster than the rest of your team. Pop your S3, she will cleanse all of the debuffs off of your team and give your whole team immunity, and the toddler will still have his debuffs, and he basically just kills himself. So she's like completely negates all of the mechanics of Tyrant toddler. So it's a little pro tip. Dracan, easy A. Hold up. She may actually be S tier PvE. Let me think about it. I got to compare her to like these two. She's S tier. Now that I think about it, she's easy S tier PvE unit. She is, outside of Tamamo, and even in some situations, even faster than Tamamo at stacking curses. And her EE to this day is probably one of the best EEs in the entire game. 35% priority when attacking a enemy that has debuffs is insane. She is like lightning. You will use her anywhere curses are viable. You're using her. Her damage, even without curses, is respectable, especially her S3, because it scales off of the number of debuffs, and she's applying curses like it's going out of style. She's a powerhouse in PvE. Keep her alive and let her go. Amazing unit. Aeolus. She's kind of a B tier unit for me. Her kit is kind of split. She's one of those identity crisis units. I think I've said that in previous lists too. She's kind of an identity crisis. Her damage isn't amazing. She's got strip, but it's conditional. She's got unbuffable, but it's like a low percentage on her S1. She has unhealable, but only whenever your team takes debuffs. She only cleanses like one debuff. She's got all these different mechanics in her kit, and she doesn't really do any of them well. That's her whole deal. Eliza, I'll give you C tier. She's got the strip and she's got the defense break, and she enables Beth. So, she's not garbage tier. So like she can be an answer for Secreed as well. She's dark, she can go 330 speed because she's a ranger, and she can strip. So right there, if you have Eliza, you can beat Secreed. I'm going to put Epsilon at B tier. She's more just a general damage dealer, but she does have the strip. She does have invulnerability so that she can cheese some things. She's just more under the generic DPS for PvE. She's more of a PvP unit. Eternal, I'm going to put her I'm going to say low A tier because she does have the defense break. She does have the additional turn thanks to her EE, so that allows you to build CP faster. That's very important for PvE content. She can remove buffs. She can put unhealable. So she's got a lot of the defense break. I think I already said that. She's got a lot of critical debuffs in her kit. So that's why she gets A tier. Fatal, I'm putting her in C tier. Her damage with her S3 is actually really good. It's really good single target damage. But that's it. She has no other real redeeming qualities. Her stealth buff, I'm sure they'll come out with a unit someday where they'll make stealth OP. But for now, she's just not it. She's just not it. Fran, I'm sorry. I'm going to put you in D tier. You had your niche in Ragnek, or the Dark Dragon, whatever the heck his name is, in World Boss, but even still, you've been phased out. You have really no redeeming qualities at all in PvE, outside of your chain finisher being unique in very, very niche and very, very niche situations. That isn't even really that important. So, you're D tier. Sorry. Alright, Gnosis Nella. Is she S tier in PvE? It's a massive question. I personally, and she's still really new, and we haven't had a lot of content in which we have been able to experiment with her, right? I personally think that she's not S tier in PvE. I think she's A tier. And I will put her here. Reason being, her S3 is basically useless in PvE. When you have a skill that is essentially dead for a piece of content, that hurts you a lot. Unless for some reason there's a boss that is immune to stun, which seems very ludicrous and unrealistic. And it's only a one-turn stun, too. Mind you, you could extend it in other ways. Her S3 is completely useless. The amazing part of her that makes her high A tier is her S2, because it is loaded with every single debuff that is good in PvE. Unbuffable, defense break, strip, skill cooldown, all in one skill. Absolutely insane for PvE. But it's on like a 3-turn cooldown at least. And so, yeah, you blow your load and then you're like, okay, let's wait. Her S1 doesn't really do a lot of damage, even with the 50% boss multiplier on her EE. She still isn't going to do very much damage. And quite frankly, what really aggravates me about units like her, heavy strikers, is that they cannot build CP at all. Like, unless it's specifically dark type and you can run sages, then she can build CP. But you cannot crit. And one of the most important aspects of PvE is being able to crit to build CP via rogues. Is she cannot do that. And so for those reasons, her S3 being absolutely trash for PvE and her ability to not build CP effectively, I can't put her S tier. Can't make me do it. Gnosis Dahlia, A tier. She's just, in PvE, she's just a generic DPS. She's the best part that makes her A tier above anything else is not necessarily her survivability. Because most content in PvE has a base of 10% critical chance. Okay, you're not going to sit here and roll the dice on 10% chance to get crit so that she pops her counterattack skill. It's not going to happen consistently enough for you to plan for that. But you can burst her and use her S1 for a full team 20% priority push on top of good damage. That's why she's A tier. In my mind, she will never be S tier in PvE, but she is a solid A tier unit. Hannibal, you're pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, she has taunt, but again, not very many things can be taunted. So she's D tier. Iota. She's unique because she is the priority reduction queen. So if you can lock down things, she's amazing. Her damage is actually fairly good. She's got single target and AoE priority reduction, and she can stun a few things here and there. She is hilariously good in some forms of world boss because you can just perma-lock down the boss. So for that gimmick alone, she deserves A tier in my mind. Cannon. Her damage is just too good. It's just too good. She can build CP really well. She doesn't really have much in addition to her kit that makes her unique in PvE. But in terms of single target damage dealers, like, she can still absolutely slap in Chimera as your single target DPS. Like, it's crazy. If you build her correctly, she can slap. So she, in my opinion, she's kind of like low-ish A tier, but incredibly high B tier. Because she's just a damage dealer, but she's a freaking darn good one. Kappa, easy A tier. Amazing survivability. AoE shields for the entire team, so she helps with survivability there. Her S3 hits like a truck, and it can strip without any conditions to it. She can solo Tyrant Toddler. She's just incredibly hard to kill. Like, I think I even put out a video where she can solo Glycis as well. So in PvE, she's insanely good. It's actually crazy that in the latest patch that they're giving Kappa to everybody for free. That actually kind of blows my mind. She's that good. Kuro. I know she's got a lot of PvE skills in her kit, but she's not really that great. She has 8% fixed damage on her S3, but it's only for enemies that don't have a stat reduction effect on them. And with her buff reversal, that, like, it's more catered towards bosses that just can't be debuffed. And at that point, it kind of defeats the purpose because she has, like, marked and stuff like that. And she's got fixed damage. She's nice for, like, some kind of world boss and stuff like that. But she's not going to be your first pick for, you know, like Calamari or Amadeus and stuff like that. So, yeah, she just kind of falls in the middle for me. She's she's more of a PvP unit for me. And B tier. Lapis. I'm dancing here. She's really good for Metos, okay? Like, she's good for Metos. Because she's got the shields. Like, she was handmade at the beginning of the game, like, hello, my name's Lapis and I'm a Metos unit. Please use me. She's got fixed damage on her chain finisher, and she has shields based on her attack. In Metos, you cannot heal, so you have to rely heavily on shields, and Metos is more of a DPS race before he just obliterates you. But it's hard for me to rank her any higher than B tier just based on that. I mean, I don't know. I look at these units in A tier and it's like, okay, I can't put Lapis with them. Leo, you're pretty much trash. Like, outside of some invulnerability shenanigans, you're not that good. Maxi. Easy A tier for me. I soloed Chimera 12 with her, albeit that was a very unique build. But her damage is insane, and if you build a team around her to synergize with her, she's incredible DPS. Love her for PvE. Easy A tier unit. Maxwell, I just don't like you. Like, don't take it personally. I gotta give you C tier because of his EE. Sometimes there's some shenanigans you can pull with his EE because it gives an insane buff to mages. And sometimes that can be abused. So he's not completely useless. He's just, I don't like him. You know, I'm entitled to my opinion. Main A. Honestly, for PvE, she drops off for me. I think she's more of a B tier unit for PvE. Revive's great. She can burst like no other. She can remove one debuff. But when you look at the other healers that are up in A tier, you're like, okay, yeah, she's not as good as them. So, B tier. Miro, you're A tier. Attack buff, accuracy buff. Very nice for bugs. 12. Really good for raid. Has some other viability because she helps. It kind of sucks that her dual attack is 80%, but 80% you could try a couple times and you'll eventually get 100% uptime on the dual attack, so it's more of an annoyance than it is anything. But she's really good. So I'm going to give her A tier. Monad Eva, S tier. Easily S tier. She is the unit that we tell all beginners to go for off of their reroll because she is so crazy. 5-star Monad Eva basically takes you about anywhere you want to go in PvE. She is the premier healer. She can give dual attacks for free. So like Miro was 80%. She's just guaranteed dual attacks unconditional. So she helps with your damage overall because she's constantly pulling your main DPS for dual attacks. And then at 5-star, she will pull 2 damage or 2 units for a dual attack, which is crazy when you consider that each one of those units that gets pulled, if they're running rogues or sages, and they either are hitting their appropriate element for sages or crit with rogues, they're still generating CP by doing that dual attack. So she is the chain skill enabling goddess, and she can heal. She can also do shenanigans with invulnerability. She gives speed buff to the entire team. Her kit is just absolutely insane for PvE. We will throw her to the front. Nella. I'm going to go ahead and put her in A tier for PvE. Haven't really played with her too much because, again, I'm not a big healer person in PvE anymore. But her kit does have a lot of redeeming qualities to it. Being able to push 70% up and heal the team. Being able to priority push your team. Being able to put immunity up for the team. Man. Lemonade's got me messed up. But yeah, her kit is very good for keeping your team alive in PvE. So she's A tier. Noah, she's a good DPS, but she just gets outshadowed really bad by Ame and now Rin. So I'm probably going to drop Noah down to B tier. Notia, you're high B tier. Man, I'm going to put her A tier. She is invaluable in World Boss for her priority pushing shenanigans. She makes your entire team zoom. Whenever she has her buff, she buffs the entire team's priority by 20%. And that is actually huge in PvE. On top of her damage and her debuffs, being able to silence healers. One of the biggest things that we've really given her credit for lately is being able to apply poison, especially out of turn, because there's a lot of things that are starting, a lot of PvE bosses, primarily World Boss, that are getting a lot of priority gains, and poison helps reduce priority gains. So for that, she's gotten even more viability in PvE over time. So it's hard for me to not put her in A tier. Oh, poolside Regina, and just, yeah. Sucks that she's limited and people missed out on her, but she is insane for PvE. Massive single target damage with her S3 that ignores some defense. Her S2 steals buffs, which is very important. So between stealing and removing, stealing is the better one. Not only because you actually get the buffs, but because some bosses say that they're immune to buff removal. Buff stealing actually circumvents that and still works. So even though the boss is not supposed to be stripped, they can be stolen from, which is hilarious. I'm looking at you, Calamari. Calamari cannot be stripped, but he can be stolen from, which is hilarious. And her S1 is absolutely hilarious for ad clear because she gets an additional turn whenever she kills an enemy. So she's just a phenomenal, and she has access to an extra turn on her burst 3 S2. So her kit is amazing for PvE. Absolutely love her. Regina, not as strong as her seasonal counterpart, but still very good because she is incredibly high light damage. She has the buff removal. I don't think hers isn't steal. Hers is removal. She has the damage mitigation through her Regina's world. She has a counterattack, so that helps build a little bit more CP. But she's mostly here as a really, really, really strong single target damage dealer and buff remover. A tier for sure. Ray, new unit. I think I've used her a couple times in PvE. She's not S tier because the main gimmick of her thing is being able to extinct units. There are some situations in PvE, mostly in like Skyward Tower, where units can revive. The only other place that I can think of revival is the Fire Raid, which obviously she's not going to be used in Fire Raid. But she's an incredible single target damage dealer. So she's better than Noah in my opinion. I'm probably going to go ahead and put her in A tier because she has the high single target damage with an additional turn. So she's kind of like an Air, but not as good as Air because she doesn't have the strip. Rona, you're pretty much trash. I'm going to throw you down here. You just don't do enough damage. Rin, you and Noah are basically the same unit in my mind, just different elements. Roxy, I'm going to put you next to your sister. Albeit maybe not as good as your sister, but still. When you put them on the same team in PvE, if the team makes sense, they're pretty hilarious together. Just good damage dealer, CP builder. just good unit in general for damage. Saren, also S tier. I'm going to put her right next to Asti because they're kind of best friends. She helps by she can push units all the way to 100% priority. She can cool down their skills. Her S2 can give the team healing, AP, and priority pushing through her EE. She's just a very good PvE unit in general as a healer. You're trash. We don't even say your name. Itamamo is S tier purely because she's just hilarious to use. She can blow up so many things. And it doesn't really matter who they are as long as they're not immune to curse and she doesn't die. Because her damage doesn't really care about what element they are. You just build up a bunch of curse stacks. Like, we're going to put you right next to Drakon because these two are a hilarious combo. I have a couple videos up on my YouTube just showing how insane their synergy is together. Stella. I'm going to put her A tier because she does have buff stealing, not removal, so that's the better form, even though it can be resisted, so you're going to have to rely on a little bit of luck there. And she can also she can remove buffs, but she can revenge, and her revenge removes debuffs from your team, which is really valuable as kind of a reactive skill. And the fact that she cannot be stunned or anything like that, so she can survive, or she can take a hit and not get locked down like the rest of her team, and then turn around and cleanse that CC on your team. So, and she has priority reduction on her S1, which is also very, very rare and very, very good. Strope, you are B tier. She's got pretty good viability in her kit for PvE. The accuracy and effectiveness buff is unique in being able to help. Reducing skill cooldowns on your entire team is also very, very good. Her damage stacking is okay, but not like amazing. Tamamo, S tier for what she does. Very unique unit. Starter chain skill, fixed damage is incredibly strong. Being able to build CP with her S3, defense breaks, strip, evasion reduction. Yeah, very, very good PvE unit. She pretty much trivializes Chimera, which is one of the most important places to farm. Used in World Boss, used in Guild Raid. Yeah, just, you can't go wrong using her in PvE. She's basically eternal, but better. It's the fair way to put that. Tamara is S tier, skill cooldowns, crit rate buff, crit damage buff, marked, dual attacks, just loaded kit for PvE. She's a fantastic buffer. Val is basically fire Tamara, but she has a lot of dual attacks built into her S1 with her burst, crit rate, crit damage buff, priority reduction on S3. Amazing PvE unit. Veronica is easy A tier in my mind. Buff strip, defense buff, taunt is very important for a lot of content, and very, very easy access to double dual attack on her burst 3 because she's a defender. It's very, very low CP activation, and it's generally pretty easy to build AP on defenders because they get AP as they get hit. And Vlada, I'm going to put you as a B tier unit. So, alright. Tier lists are up to date. That is the PvE list.